You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
The NACS Show is the industry's most comprehensive event, but it's even more than that. The NACS Show is where people get together, get great ideas. It is a connection point. It is the start of how do you plan for the next year. And we are going to have an insider's conversation about what you need to do before, during, and after the NACS Show. Joining us today is Jeff McQuilkin. He's joining me and Chrissy Blasinsky. He is the director of exhibit sales. Between the three of us, we've been to something like 50-some NACS shows. So it is a conversation about some of the things we've learned, whether you've been to a show every year, whether you've been irregularly, or whether it's your first time. We're going to talk about it from the retail side and from the supplier side. So thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So when I say Jeff, I'm talking to you. Just want to be clear on that.
Understood.
Just say Jeff McHugh.
No, so just let's start off, Jeff, and just the expo. I think a lot of people think of that as the fascinating, amazing, superlative part of the NACS Show. It is one part, but let's start talking about that part. How big is it? How many exhibitors? How many new exhibitors? What's going on this year?
So a lot of things are going on. If you want numbers, I can give you numbers. It's about 435,000 square feet of expo space. And since we're in America and we measure everything in terms of football fields, that's about 7.5 football fields of exhibit space.
It's also, I guess, to put it in retail terms, it's about 6 Buc-ee's.
5.8 to be exact. Yeah. So we'll have a number of exhibitors. We'll have 1,250, maybe a few more different exhibitors at the show. Let's 2 full halls at the Georgia World Congress Center. So this is as big a show as we've had in some time, certainly post-COVID.
And the other part of that is about 300 new exhibitors, which is something we've done over the past couple of years. It's a very intriguing area of the expo.
Yeah, so we have a separate new exhibitor area, cleverly titled the new exhibitor area, and it's
right, new exhibitors.
Exactly. It has its own separate entrance that because it's open 1 hour before the main expo each of the first 2 days. But then when the main expo opens, you can access that area from several points. 205, 210 or so of the new exhibitors will be in that section. The rest are, in most cases, just sort of scattered throughout the main expo hall. But it's an amazing area. It's super high energy. It's super fun. And there's some great stories to learn and to be told in that area about small mom and pop shops that are putting literally their entire year's marketing budget, putting all their chips on the NACS Show. And in most cases that bet pays off well for them. Also this year, by the way, we're having a sort of what I call like a mini Canadian pavilion. There's 4 companies that will be in the new exhibitor area that are sponsored by the provincial government of Quebec. So they're just going to be next to each other, I think, in the 5,000 aisle of the new exhibitor area. They've sent us some trial products. They're fantastic. If this works and we get some interest, we may expand on that and do some sort of country-focused pavilions.
Chrissy, I know you've hit the new exhibitor area every year. From my perspective, I went last year, and if you're a retailer, I think the real opportunity in going to that area is not just looking at what they have. These are people that may not know about our industry to the level that we think, as somebody that's come year after year. But when you talk to them, they are so enthusiastic, and the first thing they say is, "I had no idea." It's really incredible to see when somebody new, their eyes are open to our industry, and I assume that's the experience that you had in going and checking out some of those exhibitors.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely exhibitors in there that you'll recognize. You've seen them in other channels, or maybe not. Maybe they are totally new, but they Yes, I mean, there's definitely companies in there that just the size and scope of what the NACS show has to offer, and maybe there's not another retail show around of our size that they get to go into, and it's. I think it's just a testament to our channel that it's constantly innovating, it's constantly moving. There's always something new and fun to find whenever you walk in a convenience store, and there's always something new and fun to find when you go into the NACS show, and certainly that. The new exhibitor area is somewhere that I spend, a decent amount of time in. I also think in terms of the expo having, you mentioned that combined we've been to quite a number of shows. I think this one will be my 18th or 19th. I have found that the edges are my favorite part of the expo. I think walking those aisles that are around the perimeter, the smaller booths, the ones, I think those, if maybe they didn't get into the new exhibitor area, or, this is only like their second or third time at the show, but to me, I've seen some of the craziest and coolest stuff walking the edges of the NACS show. So I would never discount really taking advantage of the entire floor space. And it's 2.5 days. That third day, honestly, is where I probably put the most miles in. That last day when, after that general session ends, and you've only got till 1:30 to just kind of, go crazy and hit everything, really, really see some cool stuff and, take the time to talk to people. And it's
up early,
fun.
see John Cena, and then hit the expo floor.
Yeah.
So Jeff, Chrissy talked about cool new products. Do we have an expo space for that?
We do. We have it.
That was a little rhetorical.
A cleverly named one.
Right. We do. And it does sometimes get confused with the new exhibitor area, but there is a cool new products preview room. That'll be it won't be actually on the expo floor. It'll be in a separate room there in the convention center. That is open to any exhibitor that has a new or a newly sort of revised or repackaged product. There'll be several hundred products there from all 5 of our various product areas. And there's it's sort of a 2-way lead retrieval system that is an app on your phone. You can scan their code, and then the maker of that product or service will know that you had some interest in their product, and you in turn will be able to get some information sent to you about that product. The Cool New Products Preview Room starts on Tuesday the 3rd, which is the day before the expo opens, and it stays open through Friday. There's different hours each day, so I would just say check the website or your mobile app to see the hours for that particular day.
Yeah, and that's a really cool area because you can if you don't have a plan, it's a good way to see a whole bunch of ideas and build out that plan. And then also there's a leaderboard that we have every day that lists what are people looking at.
Right.
And usually it's
it's
not usually the things that you might think fancy new. Sometimes it's shelving units, something. What are people looking at, and it can kind of guide you towards this is something that people are really intrigued by.
Right. There's always a couple surprises in the top 10, but there are so many. Well, I hate to say it, but cool products in there, and you can have it's not all separated, so you can have some candy and gum next to some new technological advice. It's a great way. It's a quick walk through there, but it's a great way to spend your time.
So I had said we're going to talk about the before, during, and after. Let's start a little bit more with the before. And Chrissy, having been to almost 20 NACS shows, what advice do you have for somebody who is hitting that show floor or starting out at the NACS show? What have you heard from people that make it really effective in terms of planning?
Well, yeah,
you gotta have a
that's
plan.
Exactly what I was going to say. That's true for first timers, 10 timers, or 20 timers. Because what Chrissy said is absolutely right. There's some gold on the fringe. So don't ignore those booths on the outside. But you really need to take some time, look at the website or the app ahead of time, get an idea of who you might want to see, where they are, and try to plan out your day, because it's just too big to try to stumble around and see if you can accidentally find something that's cool. And then, of course, the other part of that plan is to bring comfortable shoes. So
yes, that's a huge part of the plan.
Oh, and Band-Aids and Band-Aids
right.
and all the bunion pads or whatever else you need, because it's comfortable shoes isn't enough.
And
hydrate and just be ready to go hard for 3 or 4 days and get the most out of the show.
And the other thing is the education session. Just like if you've never been to the NACS Show, you might think there's a bunch of tabletop booths and something like that. No, there's half pipes with skateboarders. There's celebrities. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's really, really cool, and there's really cool products there. And then you have the education sessions, and don't discount those, because the average attendance at education sessions last year, 50 of them, each of them averaged 250 people. And for a normal conference, 250 people is called the general session. And that is how big these education sessions are. So plan them out, because room size is limited, and you don't want to be left out, because it is really, really top-notch education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd say to that, if let's just say you and 2 of your colleagues are going to the NACS Show, there's 3 of you total. There's 45 education sessions. Divide and conquer, right? Like there's a lot of, they're broken out, and I think it's 11 tracks, different, from category management to food service to fuel, technology. There's really a lot of great stuff and information to pick up in the education sessions. And these sessions are all developed by retailers. They get together at the beginning of the year, hash out what they want, what the hot topics are and what they could be by the time the show rolls around. And then, pick the speakers, all retailers for retailers. And, there's a lot of great insights. So I would say divide and conquer on those too.
And there's the opportunity, Jeff, for suppliers, for exhibitors to do things in advance. It's important to have that booth, but you can also let people know that you have some cool stuff going on. So there's some pre-planning that you can do as well as a supplier.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, our job is to get the attendees, the buyers in the building, but then it's kind of your job, Mr. Supplier, to get them to your booth and distinguish yourself from the other 1,249 or 1,299 exhibitors. And while there is a good chance that people will just kind of walk around, and if you have something exciting, they'll stop and see what you got. But there's so much at stake. Why not, again, make a plan, make a little extra investment, and make sure the word is out about what you have going. If you have something special, be it a celebrity, a new product, or just some special reason for them to stop by, it's absolutely worth it and important to get that word out ahead of time.
And get that word out to us if you have a celebrity or something going on in your booth. Send it to one of the Jeffs or Chrissy. That's the kind of stuff we want to know, because we can help support you in telling the story about the cool stuff, why the NACS Show is special.
Right. I already know there's going to be several besides John Cena at the event this year. I won't start to name them because I can't remember them all, but there's some fun.
Do you even know
I
who
know
they are?
many of them, not all of them. Some I don't. Some we don't know until they're outside.
It's not the Beatles.
Pretty sure it's
That's
not
all
the
you know.
Beatles. But many of them we don't know until they're outside the door and expecting to be escorted in. So,
right.
That always is a cool thing where you just take a right-hand turn and it's like, oh, I know that person. That's a pretty big name.
Right.
And sometimes it's a sports figure, and the first thing you say is, wow, that person's really big.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, tall, and I'm glad I never tried playing that sport, because that would hurt a lot if I were tackled by that man.
Or sometimes it's a movie star, and you say, wow, that guy's really small. So
He's short.
So, Chrissy, we talked about the beforehand plan. And just Googled, what people's heights and weights and things like that are. But so then,
They're just like us.
So then you show up on site, and Chrissy, I think you had a really good point that bears repeating. Meet with your team, and we've heard from various people, whether you're a supplier or retailer, find time every day to share what you know, because if everybody's doing the same thing, you're really not best using resources. And I've heard from people that They may start at booth number 1 and end at booth number 1200 and something. There are others that go section by section, but then find a time to get back together, because something that you don't think is really interesting, 3 people on your team may say, that's what I've been looking for. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Find a way to get together and share intelligence every day.
Well, and also on that point, get together. What did you like? Did you get a chance to talk to anyone? If not, that third day is a really good day to go back out and have the conversations with those exhibitors that, because I think for the first 2 days, especially the first day, it is packed and it's a lot. But it's, it's kind of, there's sensory overload going on. But if you know that there's the booth that you didn't get a chance to talk to someone and you want to, that third day is an excellent time to kind of get a little breathing room to have those conversations with those exhibitors.
And on the flip side of that, for our suppliers and exhibitors, that third day is a great day to set up appointments, because you can kind of count on the first 2 days, a lot of traffic coming by. You might have a little bit extra free time on the third day to set up some of your pre-scheduled appointments.
And I don't know, Jeff, if I get in trouble for saying this, you'll let me know later. But I do see, a lot of times with the third day, right? What do I have to lose? And on that third day, you do see kind of the big names of the suppliers, at the booth on the first day and stuff. And by the third day, you're not really seeing those folks anymore. And I think that's a huge disservice to our retailer attendees to not have an A team on the floor at all times.
You're right. It's a different vibe on that third day. But I've talked to many suppliers who said the third day, our exhibitors who say the third day is their favorite day, because that's a day to get business done. So take advantage of it.
Yeah. And Chrissy, I know that we've talked to retailers that say the first 2 days they get the lay of the land, education sessions, general sessions, expo, and then they get together that last night and they say, okay, here's the ones we want to take a second look at. So be ready for that, because that really is a great opportunity, whether you're thinking about planning as a retailer or whether you're an exhibitor. Real nice chance there to kind of firm up some deals.
Yeah, I'll stay on your football metaphor. This is the Super Bowl for our industry, and literally every day and every play while you're there counts. This is 4 days of getting 23 to 25,000 people from all over the world in this industry together. Like literally every second counts.
So since we're keeping the football metaphors going, let's not forget that the kickoff party that is at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and
this is American football.
Yeah, this is the
way.
one that 100 yards. We use yards, not meters, and we spell meters ERS. But it's the most amazing opening reception to be on the football field of a stadium that's held the Super Bowl, that's held Taylor Swift concerts. That's a big thing, right?
Right.
But no, the biggest events, football, soccer, you name it, and you're at the field and it's all branded NACS Show. It's just amazing.
It is. It's the view standing on that field, and I've been lucky enough to do it a couple times now, but you don't get used to it. And that stadium in particular is just an incredible sight. But then being in the middle of that field, looking around, and with the party on Tuesday night, you have a great time. You can kick field goals if you're so inclined. It'd be a great time, and it's a great place to have it. We're lucky to have that right next to the convention center. And
Jeff, I hear you're going to bring back Tony Franklin from the Eagles, and you're going to be kicking barefoot?
50% chance.
Okay. So we're continuing with the game's over.
Okay.
We think the game's over. The NACS show has ended October 6th. But it's really not the end of the NACS Show, because there's still plenty of opportunities to take advantage of all the things that happen during the event. Obviously, NACS covers it wall to wall in NACS Daily, in the November issue of the NACS magazine, throughout the year, not just in the next couple days and weeks. But Chrissy, we'll start with you. What do you hear that people do really well after they leave the show?
They follow up. They didn't just come to an event, they actually follow up. And like I said, with those exhibitors on that third day, keep those conversations going. And the other thing too is the education sessions, like take those learnings back to your team. With each session that you attend, we do hold the survey hostage until, we hold the PowerPoints and presentations hostage until you fill out a survey. So don't ignore that when people at the end of the session will ask you to fill out a survey, because then you'll get the presentations, and that's one way to, digest and share with your teams what you learned.
And the other part of the surveys is, Chrissy, you had mentioned that the sessions, the education sessions, are built by retailers. They're built by retailers because retailers at the NACS Show give us feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like as much. So all of this feeds into a cycle. And
we go through all of that. Like, that feedback matters. It matters a whole lot. Honestly, like 100% it matters in crafting the sessions for 2024. We'll be looking at the feedback from this year. What worked, what didn't, and the net promoter scores, what sessions like hit it out of the park, which ones kind of fell flat. All of that feedback matters. And that's will shape what you see, next year.
Jeff, how about from the exhibitor perspective? What can they do, or best practices or things that you've seen have really worked well in following up once the booths start to be dismantled?
Well, it's sort of what Chrissy said too, just the idea of following up in general. Most of our exhibitors take advantage of the electronic lead retrieval system that we have. And so that means if you scanned somebody's badge, they've expressed a particular interest in your product or service because they stopped and talked to you for a little while. So it's just common practice, common sense, follow up as soon as you can while the conversations that you had and the face is still in mind. Make that follow up, keep that connection, because that's what's going to establish your relationship with these people over time. And, sometimes, granted, it may take 2 or 3 NACS shows to talking to the same person to sort of finally get things to click with that person or that company, but it'll be worth it. So just make sure you take advantage of all the resources we give you to meet people at the show and follow up as quick as you can.
And I guess a final pro tip for anybody attending the show as a retailer is you probably don't want to pack a carry-on. You probably want to check a bag, and you probably want to come with it about 35 pounds full, because you're going to be pretty close to that 50-pound limit once you leave. And it could be ideas, it could be information, it could be product, but it could be, because that's the one thing. I don't get out on the show floor as much as I'd like because other obligations, but I have been warned in the past that if there isn't a certain amount of candy in my suitcase, the door lock has been changed.
I want to make sure you're not kicked out of your house, but I do want to remind people that we, as an organization, do discourage what we call oversampling. Certainly feel free to take what you need to bring back, or something that looks tasty and you want to try or bring back to the family. But almost all of the leftover food at the NACS Show gets gleaned and picked up and used by the local Atlanta food bank. So just want to point that out too.
Yeah, and that's a huge
it's
undertaking.
Tons and tons of food. It's several Mack trucks full of food, and also in some cases personal products, soap, shampoo, shaving products, that kind of thing. Anything that could help out those in need in Atlanta. So we're really actually very proud of that, and it's a great organization there in Atlanta.
And it's a really nice way to give back after having just a tremendous event, which we expect to have in Atlanta.
Yes.
So it's a nice way of saying, hey, thanks, Atlanta. You gave us a really good event. We're giving back.
Yep, exactly.
So I also noticed.
All right. So you keep asking us questions. We didn't ask you anything. Like you've never been to the NACS show or something. You've been to more than we have.
I throw my opinions out there, so you don't have to worry about that. No.
Well, you should probably, and we're probably running a little long, but whatever. We only do the show once a year. So tell us about the general session a little bit, because there's a pretty, I feel, pretty famous person who's going to be speaking.
Well, yeah.
On top of that, there's also some other cool stuff.
In short, the general sessions, we have them every day for 4 days, and we want to really focus on a theme. And so the theme this year is inspiration. How can we, and the idea is, there's a difference, and it was really eye-opening to read this book from Kevin Paul Scott. And he said, a lot of people are motivated at work, but how many are truly inspired? And that just set off our journey into how do we tell the story about inspiration? Because you could be motivated by money, you could be motivated by fear, but inspiration, boy, that's a whole different level. So we're going to spend 4 days talking about inspiration. How do you inspire the customer experience? How do you inspire operational excellence? How do you have inspiration and be inspired 365 days a year? And to finish off those general sessions, we're going to have a conversation with John Cena. If you don't know John Cena, 16-time WWE World Champion. Other people may know him as being from the Barbie movie and a whole bunch of other things. But he's hilarious, too. And he also is an inspiration because he has done more Make-A-Wish events than anyone in history by far. Yeah. And he takes it personally. He does an awful lot of things to make the world better. And that's a really important part of this whole inspiration theme. So I think it's a great way to end, and the really nice way to kind of send people out of the NACS show onto the expo floor the last day and just have a world-class experience, because it is a world-class event. So.
All right, I have a question for both of you, and then we'll wrap up. Jeff McHugh, your most, and it doesn't have to be your favorite, I'm just going to say, what's your most memorable NACS show experience?
It was bad. It was bad.
Did it involve water?
It involved some, how do I put this? It involved some faulty construction practices.
Yeah.
So for everyone's safety, we had to make some changes on the fly. And that's about all I can say about it, but that was an all-timer.
I remember that.
I'll give you 2. Now, the first was in 1999, and I didn't go to the show. I wasn't even hired. I wasn't even on staff, but I had interviewed for the NACS job, and I couldn't figure out after the interview why the person that was going to hire me took 5 days to return my phone call. And it's like, what can be taking up so much of your time? I shouldn't have asked, because I did get hired, obviously. And the NACS show does take up an awful lot of our time, but it's the kind of, there's a real exuberance when you can see what everybody has done together. So that's the one. The other one was 2005, when we moved the trade show from New Orleans to Las Vegas because Hurricane Katrina. And we moved the trade show. Everybody's hotel rooms, the entire expo floor, all the education sessions, everything in a 10-week period that normally takes a full year. And none of the signs were handwritten. It was still world class. And that buzz, when that first day's expo ended, it was just amazing. It was just, this is what we can do when we do something together. And okay, what's the theme of this year's show? Winning together. So there you go. How's that?
And also, real quick, Chris, the 2021 show that we were able to pull off very safely was one of the largest events in the country during during that year, during a tough time, of course, for everybody. But we were fortunate with the timing, and that was a great show that was safely produced.
We snuck right in there between variants of COVID.
Yeah.
So also we'll have to just have a big birthday cake this year for the NACS Expo, because this is the 50th anniversary of the first NACS Expo. In 1973, we had tabletops, nothing fancy, but the idea was to show the supplier community that we were a viable channel to sell goods through. And it wasn't just the grocery model. 50 years later, kind of worked. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Chrissy. We are going to have a great NACS show. Well, actually, we'll only have a great NACS show when everyone there has a great NACS show, and we're pretty confident that you will have that great NACS show. So
absolutely.
NACSshow.com. Register.
See you in Atlanta.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.